Hello, my name is Jim McGillivray and this is the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more videos like this. You can download and print the exercises that we go over in this video by going back to the YouTube channel and clicking on the link in the description for this video. Today I'd like to talk about Taorluath, which follows up nicely on the video done recently on grips on this channel. You may wish to go back and look at the grip video before you watch this one on Taorluath. Like grips, a Taorluath is a rippling bottom hand movement consisting of 4 grace notes. It can start on any note. Generally it finishes on low A, though it can also finish on B and C as well. Here is what a Taorluath sounds like on low A. That's a full speed Taorluath. Let's look at a slow motion Taorluath. Here in this example, every note in the movement is written as a quarter note. If you don't already play a Taorluath, this is a good place to start with the slow motion Taorluath. Notice how much low G there is in this movement. I find when people have trouble with Taorluaths and grips for that matter, and even Cronluaths in their pibroch, that the biggest problem they have is not having enough low G in the movement. So we're really going to stress that today. As we saw with grips, Taorluaths really depend on fingers hitting and leaving the chanter at exactly the same time. This is crucial. For example, in the example here, you see a slow motion Taorluath played from high A down to low A. 4 fingers have to hit the chanter at exactly the same time to play that movement. Lots of people, especially intermediate players and advanced beginners, still have a little bit of trouble getting fingers to leave and hit the chanter at the same time. This is an essential skill for playing Taorluaths and grips. We have an exercise devoted completely to that. It's very simple. It allows you to concentrate only on fingers leaving and hitting the chanter at the same time. Being able to play this exercise well is absolutely critical to being able to execute good Taorluaths. Here's the exercise. Focus on this skill alone when you're playing this exercise. Lifting fingers at exactly the same time or putting them down at exactly the same time. It's at the heart of our accurate rhythmical bagpipe playing. There's another skill you need to have in order to play good Taorluaths, and that is being able to play an accurate E grace note from low G to low A, from low G to B, or from low G to C. I have an exercise to help you work on your E grace note accuracy. When I play this grace note, my E finger is going to lift up at exactly the same time as the bottom hand fingers lift up, and then the E grace note is going to finish. So if I go from low G to low A with an E grace note, my E finger and my low A finger lift at exactly the same time, and then the E finger goes back. If I'm going from low G to C, the E finger and the B and C fingers lift at exactly the same time, and then the E finger goes back to the chanter. So again, we're talking about fingers coming off the chanter at exactly the same time. Here's the exercise. I hope I've demonstrated how important it is at the start of a taorluath that your fingers hit the chanter at the same time, and at the end of the taorluath that your fingers leave the chanter at the same time. It's important enough that I've given you 2 exercises devoted specifically to that. It's a good idea to practice these sorts of technical details on the practice chanter without the distraction of a bagpipe, without the distraction of tunes and drones and everything else that goes along with playing this instrument. Isolate that skill and work on it alone. Now let's move on to the taorluath proper. Keeping with our theme of a dominant low G in the movement, I've created what I call an extended taorluath exercise. This exercise allows you to rest for a short while on the second low G in the taorluath. This helps reinforce the idea that those low Gs need to be dominant, and it also gives you a little bit of time to think about the E grace note that ends the movement. Play this exercise slowly and make sure to clearly enunciate the first low G as well. In bar 4, you may have noticed that the D taorluath is played a little bit differently from the rest. The D taorluath, rather than a D grace note, is played with a B grace note. It's an awkward little movement, and we don't see it a lot in light music. You don't very often see a D taorluath in light music. You will see D taorluaths in Pipetunes. What you do see in light music is this movement that uses the B grace note. So it's a good idea to practice D grips and D taorluaths with the B grace note, because you will eventually use that grace note. Now let's try a taorluath scale at tempo. Each movement will end on low A. Each movement will have lots of low G. And each movement will end with an accurate E grace note to low A. You may have noticed that I'm not playing these taorluaths particularly quickly. I don't try to play taorluaths as quickly as I can. A taorluath is a rippling rhythmic movement, as I mentioned before. It needs to be played with lots of rhythm and lots of clarity of each single grace note. So far, all of our taorluaths have ended on low A, but taorluaths can also end on B and C, which tests the accuracy of our E grace notes, going from low G up to B or low G up to C. Here's an exercise for bottom hand taorluaths. If you have any trouble with this exercise, you can turn it into an extended Taorluath exercise that we did before if you'd like this. Again, that reinforces the importance of the low G in the Taorluath movement and also gives you a little bit of time to think about that E grace note at the end. We haven't yet talked about where the beat falls in a Taorluath, and that's an important point. For most of our technique, for example, doublings, the beat falls on the very first grace note. In grips, Taorluaths, and D throws, the beat falls at the end of the movement. So with a Taorluath, the beat falls exactly on the E grace note. When the E grace note finger hits the chanter, the foot hits the floor. So let's listen to a Taorluath scale and I will clearly demonstrate where the beat is in the movement. One final point about Taorluaths. Very rarely do they ever start with a short note. The first note before the Taorluath is almost always long. For example, Scotland the Brave. Long note before the Taorluath and a long note after the Taorluath as well. Lots of time in the middle to play a nice rhythmical movement. So that's the story on Taorluaths. It's a complex movement, so be very patient with it. If you would like me to cover a certain topic on these videos, please pop me an email to info@pipetunes.ca and we will try to cover it for you. From me, Jim McGillivray and the Pipe Box, good piping.